Captain Jake Morrison stared at the holographic display floating above the conference table. Another colony had gone dark. That made 12 in 3 weeks. The red markers on the star map seemed to mock him, each one representing thousands of lives lost to the Vraxian hive. "We must consider the legal implications," High Counselor Zelthor said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The tall, gray-skinned Cantharian stood at the head of the table, his ceremonial robes flowing despite the lack of wind in the chamber. "These territories fall under complex jurisdictional boundaries." Jake clenched his fists under the table. They had been in this meeting for 6 hours. 6 hours of talking while people died. Dr. Lisa Chen sat beside him, her tablet covered in notes that no one would read. She had discovered something important 3 days ago, but every time she tried to speak, one of the elder species talked over her. The council treated humans like children who should be seen and not heard. "Permission to speak," Jake said, standing up. He did not wait for approval. "We have a solution. My ship, the Valkyrie, along with 4 other Earth vessels, can reach the hive's forward position in 2 days. Dr. Chen has found their weakness." Zelthor's expression did not change, but his tone grew colder. "Captain Morrison, humanity has been part of this council for merely 15 years. We have maintained peace for 3,000. Your impulsive nature is precisely why you are not trusted with military decisions." Lisa stood up beside Jake. "High Counselor, if you would just look at my research." "Your research methods are unconventional and unproven," another council member interrupted. This one was a Thelian, her blue skin shimmering under the lights. "We cannot base military strategy on human guesswork." Jake felt his jaw tighten. Guesswork. Lisa had worked for 72 hours straight, analyzing hive biology from the few samples they had recovered. She had found that specific sound frequencies disrupted their neural connections. It was solid science, but the council would not listen. Ambassador Ryan Holland, Earth's official representative, placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. The older man had been trying to maintain diplomatic relations for 5 years. Jake could see the exhaustion in his eyes. "Perhaps we should form a committee to review Dr. Chen's findings," Ryan suggested carefully. "An excellent proposal," Zelthor agreed. "I motion to establish a research committee to convene in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Jake looked at the holographic map again. In 2 weeks, how many more red markers would appear? "Another colony just sent a distress signal," a technician announced from the back of the chamber. "It's the settlement on Brea 4. Population, 43,000. The council members began discussing proper protocol for responding to distress calls. They debated which subcommittee should handle it. They argued about whether it fell under military or humanitarian jurisdiction. Jake watched the signal on his personal display. He could see the timestamps of the messages: panic, terror, screaming, then silence. 43,000 people. Gone. While the council talked about protocol. Something inside Jake snapped. "You know what?" he said, his voice cutting through the debate. "Fine, I'll do it myself." The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye turned toward him. "Captain Morrison, you cannot—" Zelthor began. "Watch me," Jake said. He gathered his things and walked toward the door. "Lisa, are you coming?" Dr. Chen did not hesitate. She grabbed her tablet and followed him. "This is highly irregular," Zelthor called after them. "If you leave this chamber, if you take unauthorized military action, there will be consequences." Jake stopped at the doorway and turned back. "Consequences? You want to talk about consequences? 12 colonies are gone, hundreds of thousands of people are dead, and you're still talking about forming committees. So yes, there will be consequences. But at least I'll be able to sleep at night knowing I tried to save people instead of just talking about saving people." He walked out. Lisa followed. Behind them, Jake heard other footsteps. He glanced back and saw a dozen human officers leaving their posts and following him out of the council chamber. Ambassador Holland caught up with them in the corridor. Jake, wait! If you do this, Earth could be sanctioned. They might kick us out of the council entirely. Then we'll be kicked out, Jake said. But we'll be kicked out knowing we did the right thing. Ryan studied his face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll try to minimize the political damage, but Jake, you better make this count. I will, Jake promised. Within an hour, Jake was back aboard the Valkyrie. He sent encrypted messages to other Earth vessels in the sector. The response was immediate. Captain Chris Parker of the Thunderchild responded first. About damn time someone did something, we're with you. 4 more destroyers, 2 science vessels, and even a mining frigate volunteered to join the unauthorized mission. None of them cared about council approval. They cared about stopping the hive before more people died. Lisa set up her equipment in the ship's lab, preparing to modify their weapons based on her research. I need 3 days to adapt the sonic cannons, she said. You have 2, Jake replied. That next colony won't last longer than that. She nodded. Then I'll make it work in 2. As the Valkyrie prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Jake stood on the bridge and looked at his crew. They were young compared to most spacefaring species. Humanity had only been traveling the stars for a few decades, but they had something the elder races seemed to have forgotten, the willingness to act when action was needed. All ships, prepare for jump, Jake commanded. We're going hunting. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Council's bureaucracy behind. News of their departure spread quickly through official channels. Some called it mutiny. Others called it heroism. But everyone in the galaxy was watching to see what would happen when humans decided to stop asking permission and start taking action. High Counselor Zelthor watched the ships disappear from his sensors and felt something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous. And now they were operating without oversight. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans said, "Fine, I'll do it myself." The fleet gathered at the edge of the Velos system, 9 human ships that had no business being there. Jake stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie and watched the other vessels take formation. They looked small compared to the massive Council warships, but size did not matter if you never used your weapons. Captain, we're receiving telemetry from the mining frigate, Lieutenant Ben Carter said from the tactical station. They've rigged their excavation lasers to function as close-range weapons. Jake smiled. That was the most human thing he had heard all day. When you did not have proper weapons, you made weapons out of what you had. What's our status, Kate? Jake asked. Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan looked up from her console, grease smeared on her cheek. The sonic emitters are online, but they're unstable. Lisa's frequency will work, but we can only fire 3 shots before the systems overheat. 3 shots are better than none, Jake replied. Make them count. Dr. Lisa Chen entered the bridge carrying a datapad. She had not slept in 2 days, but her eyes were bright with determination. I've sent the sonic frequency to all ships. The hive uses a shared neural network. If we hit them with this sound, it should disrupt their coordination for about 90 seconds. 90 seconds is all we need, Ben said. He had been working on tactical approaches that the Council would never approve. Too risky, too aggressive, too human. Show me what you've got, Ben, Jake said. Ben brought up a holographic display of the hive's forward position. 3 massive bioships floated near a small colony world, their tentacles already reaching toward the planet's surface. Standard Council doctrine says we should maintain distance and use long-range weapons, but the hive's armor is too thick for that approach, so instead we go in close and fast. How close? Jake asked. Close enough to see their ugly faces, Ben grinned. We jump in right on top of them, hit them with the sonic blast, and while they're stunned, we hammer them with everything we've got. Mining lasers, missiles, even our cargo containers if we can launch them hard enough. That's insane, Captain Chris Parker said over the communication link from the Thunderchild. I love it. Kate leaned back in her chair. I've been working on something else. something probably illegal in 17 different ways. My favorite kind of plan, Jake said. Our faster-than-light drives, Kate explained. They create a massive energy field when we jump. What if we weaponize that? Jump in, release the energy as a directed blast, then jump out before they can respond. Lisa's eyes widened. That could work. The energy discharge would fry their neural connections. But Kate, if you miscalculate, the ship could tear itself apart. Then I won't miscalculate, Kate said simply. Jake looked around his bridge. These people were willing to try things that could kill them all. Not because they were stupid, but because they understood that doing nothing guaranteed people would die. At least this way, they had a chance. All ships, prepare for jump, Jake commanded. We're going with Ben's plan. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and get out before they know what happened. The fleet jumped into the Velos system 3 minutes later. The Hive bioships detected them immediately, but by then, it was too late. The human vessels appeared right in the middle of the formation, so close that the Hive's long-range weapons were useless. "Fire sonic emitters!" Jake shouted. A sound wave that would have been inaudible in space rippled out from the human ships, transmitted through directed energy beams. The Hive ships shuddered. Their movements became jerky and uncoordinated. "All weapons! Fire at will!" Ben commanded. The battle became chaos. Mining lasers cut through bioarmor. Missiles struck exposed sections. The mining frigate rammed one of the Hive ships, its reinforced hull punching through the enemy's side before pulling away. Kate activated her experimental weapon. The Valkyrie's faster-than-light drive spun up to full power, then released its energy in a focused blast. The nearest Hive ship lit up like a star, its systems overloading. "Jump, jump, jump!" Kate yelled, and the Valkyrie vanished into faster-than-light travel just as the Hive ship exploded. The human fleet scattered, using tactics that made no sense to conventional military doctrine. They did not maintain formation. They did not follow standard attack patterns. They hit, ran, and hit again from different angles. The Hive ships tried to adapt, but adaptation required time. The humans did not give them time. 20 minutes after the battle started, all 3 Hive ships were destroyed. The human fleet regrouped on the far side of the system, checking their damage. "Casualties?" Jake asked. "Minor injuries only," Ben reported. "The Thunderchild lost an engine, but they can still jump. The mining frigate's hull is compromised, but they're sealing the breaches." "The colony?" Jake asked. "Saved," Lisa said, relief clear in her voice. "They're already sending thanks." Jake allowed himself a moment to breathe. They had done it. They had proven that action worked better than endless debate. But the victory came with a price. Within hours, the Galactic Council sent an official message. Jake read it on his personal display and could not help but laugh. "What is it?" Lisa asked. "We've been formally reprimanded," Jake said. "Unauthorized military action, violation of council protocols, dangerous tactics. They want us to return immediately to face disciplinary proceedings." "What are you going to tell them?" Ben asked. Jake thought about the colony they had just saved. He thought about the people who were still alive because his crew had acted instead of waiting for permission. "I'll respond after we've saved more colonies," Jake said. "There are still Hive ships out there, and I don't see the Council stopping them." News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light travel. Some species were impressed. Others were horrified. The phrase "going human on it" started appearing in alien communications, meaning to solve problems with excessive force and creativity. High Counselor Zelthor watched the battle recordings with growing concern. The humans had succeeded where Council forces had been too cautious to try. Worse, they had made it look easy. "This cannot stand," Zelthor said to his advisors. "If we allow this behavior, every species will start ignoring our authority." But in the outer colonies, the saved populations were singing songs about the crazy humans who did not wait for permission to save lives. And on Earth, More ships were preparing to join Jake's unauthorized fleet. The mayhem had officially begun. 3 more Earth ships arrived in the middle of the night cycle. Jake had not called for them. They simply came, carrying messages from their captains that all said the same thing. "We're tired of waiting. Point us at the enemy." The human fleet now numbered 12 vessels. They had destroyed 7 hive positions in 2 weeks, saving 5 colonies. The Council sent increasingly angry messages demanding their return. Jake deleted them without reading past the first line. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa said, rushing onto the bridge. She looked excited and worried at the same time, which was never a good combination. Jake followed her to the science lab, where holographic displays showed a 3-dimensional map of the sector. A large red mass pulsed at the center. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. "The hive's main nest," Lisa said. "Chris Parker's crew found it. It's huge, Jake. Easily 10 times bigger than anything we've fought before. If we can destroy this, we might end the entire invasion." Jake studied the location and felt his stomach drop. "That's in the sanctuary zone." "Yes," Lisa said quietly. The sanctuary zone was protected space, reserved for religious sites and ancient ruins. Council law forbade any military action there. Treaties thousands of years old protected those systems. Breaking those treaties would be a crime on a scale Jake had never considered. "How many people will die if we leave the nest alone?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up projections. "Based on the hive's current expansion rate, at least 2 million in the next month, maybe more. 2 million lives versus ancient treaties." Jake knew what the Council would choose. They would let people die to preserve their laws. "Get me Captain Parker," Jake said. Chris Parker appeared on the communication screen, his usual smile replaced by grim determination. "You saw Lisa's report?" "Yeah," Jake said. "We're going in." "Jake, if we do this, there's no going back. The Council will consider it an act of war against their authority." "I know," Jake said. "But I'd rather be a criminal who saved lives than a good soldier who stood by and let millions die." Chris nodded. "Then let's go commit some crimes." The human fleet jumped to the sanctuary zone 6 hours later. The main nest was even more horrifying in person. It looked like a giant tumor floating in space, covered in pulsing organic matter. Smaller hive ships moved around it like cells around a heart. "We've been ordered to stand down," Ambassador Dan Hayes said over a priority channel from Earth. "Jake, the Council has threatened to expel humanity entirely. They're calling this an invasion of sacred space." "Tell them to expel us after we're done," Jake replied. Kate had spent the journey preparing her most insane idea yet. She called it the Sullivan Gambit, and it involved controlled explosions and faster-than-light ramming maneuvers that should theoretically be impossible. "Theoretically is my least favorite word," Jake had said when she explained it. "It'll work," Kate insisted. "Probably." "Probably is my second least favorite word," Jake replied, but he approved the plan anyway. The attack began with precision. The human fleet split into 3 groups. One group drew the hive's defenders away. Another group provided covering fire. The third group, led by the Valkyrie, went straight for the nest. "Activating the Sullivan Gambit," Kate announced, her hands flying across her controls. The Valkyrie's engines began to overload, exactly as planned. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel for exactly 3 seconds, then dropped back into normal space right in front of the nest. The energy discharge was massive, tearing a hole in the nest's outer shell. "Now!" Jake shouted. Every ship in the fleet fired every weapon they had. Missiles, lasers, sonic emitters, even the modified mining equipment. The nest screamed, if such a thing could scream. It was a sound transmitted through space itself, felt rather than heard. The Thunderchild executed the same maneuver from the opposite side. Chris Parker's ship blazed with excess energy as it punched through the nest's defenses. "It's working!" Lisa shouted over the sound of alarms. "The nest is collapsing!" But the hive fought back. Organic weapons erupted from the nest's surface, striking 2 human ships. One destroyer lost power and began drifting. The mining frigate took a direct hit, its hull splitting open. "All ships! Emergency evacuation protocols!" Jake commanded. "Get those crews out!" The battle became desperate. Human ships moved in ways that violated every safety regulation ever written. They took risks that would have gotten them court-martialed in any normal military. They pushed their engines beyond maximum, fired weapons until they overheated, and used their own ships as shields to protect damaged vessels. And it worked. The nest collapsed inward, its structure failing. Smaller hive ships tried to escape, but the human fleet cut them down. When the nest finally exploded, the blast wave could be seen from 3 systems away. Jake stood on the bridge, breathing hard, watching the debris field where the nest had been. They had won. But 3 human ships were badly damaged, and 17 crew members were dead. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Council," Ben said quietly. Jake knew what it would say before he heard it. High Counselor Zelthor appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes blazing with anger. "Captain Morrison, you have committed an act of unprecedented defiance. You have violated sacred space, ignored direct orders, and caused an intergalactic incident. Effective immediately, Earth forces are ordered to surrender all vessels and personnel. Any resistance will be met with military force." Behind Zelthor, Jake could see other council members arguing. Some looked angry, others looked uncertain. "With respect, Counselor," Jake said, "we just saved millions of lives." "You broke laws that have stood for millennia," Zelthor shouted. "Yes," Jake agreed. "And I'd do it again." The transmission ended. Jake looked at his crew. They looked back at him, waiting for orders. "Captain, Earth Command is sending reinforcements," Ben reported. 20 more ships are on their way. They're saying if the Council wants us, they'll have to go through Earth's entire fleet." Jake felt a mix of pride and dread. This was escalating beyond anything he had imagined. But then he thought about the colonies they had saved, the people who were alive because humans had chosen action over obedience. "All ships, maintain defensive positions," Jake commanded. "Nobody fires first, but if they come at us, we defend ourselves." Across the galaxy, billions watched as human ships faced off against Council enforcers. Some species cheered for the humans, others demanded their punishment, but everyone agreed on one thing: humanity had changed the rules forever. The phrase, "going human on it," now carried a new meaning. Getting results no matter what the cost. And the mayhem was far from over. The emergency tribunal convened 3 days after the destruction of the hive nest. Representatives from every council species filled the massive chamber, their voices echoing off the crystal walls. Jake stood in the center, surrounded by holographic displays showing his crimes. President Emma Brooks sat in Earth's delegation box, her expression calm despite the chaos around her. She had arrived on a diplomatic vessel, but everyone knew 36 Earth warships waited at the system's edge. "This tribunal will determine the fate of humanity's place in the Galactic Council," High Counselor Zelthor announced. "Captain Morrison, you stand accused of unauthorized military action, violation of the sanctuary zone, and willful defiance of Council authority. How do you plead?" "Guilty," Jake said simply. "And I'd do it again." The chamber erupted in shouts. Some aliens demanded immediate punishment. Others called for calm. Jake stood quietly and waited for the noise to die down. "You admit your crimes?" Zelthor asked, clearly surprised. "I admit that I broke your laws," Jake said. "But I don't admit that I was wrong. While you debated jurisdiction, 12 colonies died. While you formed committees, hundreds of thousands of people were consumed by the hive. So, yes, I broke your laws. Because your laws were getting people killed. Ambassador Varthen, a Thelian diplomat who had always been friendly to humanity, stood up. Permission to present evidence to the tribunal. Zelthor looked annoyed but nodded. Varthen activated a holographic display that showed the timeline of the Hive invasion. The first colony was attacked 73 days ago. The Council was notified immediately. Military Commander Zelthor received authorization to deploy forces 68 days ago, yet no Council ships moved to intercept the Hive until after the humans took action. We were following proper protocol, Zelthor said defensively. You were waiting, Varthen replied coldly. I have reviewed your communications. You wanted to demonstrate Cantharian military superiority by being the species that ultimately defeated the Hive. You delayed action deliberately, letting colonies fall, so that your eventual victory would be more impressive. The chamber fell silent. Zelthor's face darkened, but he said nothing. Your delay cost thousands of lives, Varthen continued. The humans may have broken protocols, but they saved lives while you were polishing your metals. Before Zelthor could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A junior officer ran into the chamber, clearly breaking protocol in his haste. We're under attack, he shouted. Council enforcers are firing on a human relief convoy. Emma Brooks was on her feet instantly. What convoy? Captain Ryan Mitchell's ships, the officer said. They were bringing medical supplies and food to the colonies damaged by the Hive. The enforcers are claiming they need to confiscate all human vessels. Jake's communicator buzzed. It was Ryan's voice, tight with tension. Jake, they fired without warning. We've got wounded. I'm trying to avoid shooting back, but my crew is scared. Hold your fire, Jake commanded. Do not engage. We're not giving them an excuse. Emma turned to Zelthor. Call off your ships. Now. They are following my orders, Zelthor said. All human vessels are to be detained. Those are unarmed relief ships carrying medicine and food, Emma said, her voice dangerous. If you fire on humanitarian vessels, Earth will consider it an act of war. The threat hung in the air. Everyone in the chamber knew that humanity might be junior members of the Council, but they had more warships in this system right now than any other species. Dr. Lisa Chen stood up from the human delegation. She had been quiet until now, but her voice carried across the chamber. Permission to present evidence. You are not on trial, Doctor, Zelthor said dismissively. No, but you are, Lisa replied. She activated her own holographic display. This is Council military doctrine, unchanged for 300 years. It prioritizes ship preservation over mission success. It values protocol over results. And according to my analysis, it is completely obsolete. She showed battle simulations comparing Council tactics to human tactics. In every scenario, the human approach achieved objectives faster and with fewer total casualties, despite being riskier for individual ships. You call us reckless, Lisa said. We call it effective. Your way values following rules over saving lives. Our way values results over regulations. That's the difference between us. Rules exist for a reason, Zelthor argued. Yes, Lisa agreed. But when following the rules means people die, maybe it's time to question the rules. Another alert came through. Captain Ryan Mitchell's voice filled the chamber through the communication system. Jake, we've disarmed their weapons using non-lethal electronic countermeasures. No casualties on either side. We're retreating to a safe distance. Jake felt relief wash over him. The humans could have destroyed those Council ships easily, but they had shown restraint instead. They had proven they were not the violent monsters Zelthor claimed. Ambassador Varthen spoke again. I propose a vote, not on punishing humanity, but on reforming the Council itself. We need to acknowledge that our systems failed. People died because we were too slow, too careful, too bound by ancient protocols. The humans showed us a different way. Perhaps we should learn from them instead of punishing them. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Species that had been part of the Council for thousands of years argued with each other. Some defended tradition. Others called for change. Emma Brooks spoke about Earth's military history, explaining how humans had learned through centuries of conflict that sometimes you had to act decisively even when it was risky. Finally, Zelthor called for a vote. All in favor of sanctions against humanity? Less than half the chamber voted in favor. All in favor of military reform and offering humanity a position on the military council? More than 2/3 voted yes. Zelthor stood frozen, clearly shocked by the outcome. Then, slowly, he removed his military insignia and placed it on the podium. "I resign my position," he said quietly. "It seems my time has passed." Emma Brooks approached Jake after the tribunal ended. "You know you're still getting a reprimand, right? We can't let complete insubordination go unpunished." "I know," Jake said. "But you're also getting promoted to Admiral," Emma continued. "And you'll be running the Council's new Rapid Response Division. Congratulations! You just changed the galaxy." Jake looked out at the stars through the chamber's transparent dome. He thought about the colonies they had saved, the lives that continued because humans had refused to wait for permission. "I just hope we changed it for the better," he said. Emma smiled. "Well, Admiral Morrison, I guess we'll find out." The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that sometimes breaking the rules was the right thing to do, and now the rest of the galaxy had to figure out what to do with that knowledge. 6 months passed, and the galaxy learned to live with the changes humanity had forced upon it. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the newly established Rapid Response Division, watching training exercises on the main display. 3 Thelian ships were attempting what had been dubbed the Carter Maneuver, named after Ben, who had invented it. They were not doing well. "They're too cautious," Ben said, standing beside Jake. "They keep slowing down before the attack run. That defeats the whole purpose." Jake watched one of the Thelian ships abort its approach for the 3rd time. "They've been taught to be cautious for thousands of years. You can't undo that in 6 months." "We managed it," Ben pointed out. "We're human," Jake replied. "We were never taught to be cautious in the first place." Dr. Lisa Chen entered the command center, now officially the Council's chief science advisor. Her research methods had become the new standard, though many older scientists still grumbled about how unorthodox they were. "The Thelians are requesting additional training time," Lisa said. "They say the human approach is exhausting." Jake smiled. "Tell them they can have an extra week, but remind them that the Hive doesn't wait for people to be ready." The Hive threat had been eliminated, but new dangers always emerged in the galaxy. The Council's military had been restructured completely, with human advisors integrated into every level. Ships that used to take weeks to deploy now launched in hours. Protocols that used to require committee approval were now decided by field commanders. Not everyone was happy about the changes. Captain Chris Parker walked in, shaking his head. "I just came from a meeting with the Cantharian military leaders. They're still upset that we corrupted their ancient traditions." "How upset?" Jake asked. "They challenged me to a battle simulation," Chris said. "I won using tactics a human lieutenant invented last week. They're now even more upset." "Maybe we should ease up a bit," Lisa suggested. "Let them adapt at their own pace." "The galaxy doesn't adapt at its own pace," Jake replied. "It adapts or it dies. They'll figure that out eventually." An alert sounded across the command center. A new threat had been detected on the galactic rim. Something was destroying outposts, moving fast, and ignoring all attempts at communication. "What do we know?" Jake asked. "Not much," Ben reported. "But whatever it is, it's moving toward inhabited space. Current projections give us 2 weeks before it reaches a major colony world." Jake felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. This was exactly the kind of situation that the old council would have handled with committees and debates. Now, things were different. "Send the alert to all rapid response units," Jake commanded. "I want every ship ready to deploy in 6 hours." Already done, Ben said with a grin. Within hours, the Rapid Response Division assembled. It was not just human ships anymore. Thelian cruisers flew alongside Earth destroyers. Cantharian vessels, though still uncomfortable with human tactics, had volunteered for the mission. Even species that had originally opposed the military reforms sent ships. Jake stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the mixed fleet on his display. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We've got a new threat moving toward the outer colonies. We don't know what it is yet, but we know it's dangerous. Council doctrine used to require us to wait for proper intelligence before acting. Human doctrine says we go now and learn as we fight. Today, we're using human doctrine. Any objections? Silence answered him. Then, one by one, the other ships acknowledged the order. Captain Varthen of the Thelian cruiser. Starlight spoke over the communication channel. Admiral, my crew has a question. What exactly do humans do when they encounter unknown threats? We make it up as we go along, Jake replied honestly. There was a pause, then Varthen laughed. I was afraid you would say that. The fleet jumped to the outer rim. The threat turned out to be an automated probe system from a long-dead civilization, malfunctioning and attacking anything it encountered. The old council would have tried to study it, negotiate with it, or debate what to do about it. The Rapid Response Division destroyed it in under 4 hours. During the battle, Jake watched with satisfaction as alien crews used human tactics. They adapted quickly, improvised when plans failed, and took calculated risks. They were learning. After the battle, a Cantharian officer contacted Jake directly. Admiral Morrison, that was horrifying and effective in equal measure. I believe my ancestors would be ashamed of me. Why? Jake asked. Because I enjoyed it, the officer admitted. The thrill of improvisation, the satisfaction of quick victory. It's not how we were taught, but it works. Welcome to doing things the human way, Jake said. Back at headquarters, Jake met with Emma Brooks to discuss the state of the galaxy. Earth's president looked tired but satisfied. The Council is officially requesting more human military advisors, Emma said. 20 species want to learn our tactics. The phrase going human on it has become an official military term meaning aggressive problem-solving. Are we sure that's a good thing? Jake asked. Emma considered the question seriously. Honestly? I don't know. We've changed the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Some changes are good. People are getting saved who would have died under the old system. But we've also made the galaxy more chaotic, more unpredictable. More human, Jake said. Exactly, Emma agreed. And that's both wonderful and terrifying. Later, Jake found himself in the training center, watching a young Thelian cadet practice combat maneuvers. The cadet was aggressive, taking risks, adapting quickly. She looked nothing like the cautious aliens Jake had first met 6 months ago. An older Thelian instructor stood beside Jake. That's my daughter, he said. 6 months ago, she would have followed every procedure exactly. Now she makes up her own procedures as she goes. Is that a problem? Jake asked. I don't know, the instructor admitted. But I asked her what she would do if a human ever said, fine, I'll do it myself. What did she say? Get out of the way and watch the fireworks, the instructor quoted. Then he laughed, though it sounded slightly concerned. You humans have made the galaxy louder, faster, and more dangerous, but also more honest. We stopped pretending that endless debate was the same as taking action. Jake watched the young cadet execute a perfect Carter maneuver, something that should have taken years to learn. The galaxy had changed. Humans had changed it. Whether that was good or bad would take decades to fully understand. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never go back to the way it was before. The mayhem that began when Captain Jake Morrison said, fine, I'll do it myself, had become the new normal. And the rest of the galaxy was still trying to figure out if they should be grateful or terrified. Jake suspected the answer was both.